So in this video, we're going to look at how parentheses work, and then we're going to get to the formal definition of sentence of SL. So in SL, what parentheses do is they indicate what the components of a connective are. So take this sentence here. John is unmarried, but Bob is married. So here, John is unmarried, right? It is not the case that John is married, right? You're trying to negate John is married. So that's going to be not J and B, right? Here you have what you're trying to symbolize is John and Bob aren't both married. So you will have John and Bob are married, right? John is married and Bob is married. And then you want to negate that. And the way that you indicate that what you're negating is this entire conjunction is you put parentheses around it. And then you have the negation in front of that whole thing with the parentheses. So that's what the parentheses are for. Now, the official rule, and we'll see this when we get to the formal definition, right? The official rule is this. If you start off with two sentences, right, P and Q, and then you add a connective to these to make a compound sentence, then the results are, if it's a negation, then you end up with not P, not Q. And if it's anything else, you end up with the sentences and then a connective between them and parentheses around the outside, right? Officially, that's the result of the procedure for making a new sentence out of those components. And then what we have is an informal convention that you can drop the outermost parentheses. So the parentheses only stay if this ends up being a component of a larger sentence. If these parentheses are on the very outside of the sentence, then you can get rid of them. Okay, where the parentheses don't go, so they don't go around sentence letters, right? There are never parentheses around sentence letters. There are no parentheses around negations, so there are never sentences around those. And it's not just negated sentence letters, right? If you have a like a complicated sentence like J and B, right, and that will have parentheses around it, and then the negation will be in front of those parentheses, but then you don't have another set of parentheses outside of the negation symbol, right? The negation itself does not have parentheses around it. These are, it's really important to follow these conventions here, right? Not put parentheses in where you don't need them. Because when you have a complicated sentence with a lot of set of parentheses in it, I mean, it's bad enough keeping track of which set of parentheses goes with which, right? Which left parenthesis and which right parenthesis go with each other, right? This keeping track of those, lining those up becomes a serious problem in complicated sentences. And the last thing you want to do is make that harder for yourself by adding in parentheses where you don't need them. So you don't put them in around sentence letters, you don't put them in around negations because they don't go there and you're just making life harder for yourself. Now, where they do go is they go around conjunctions, disjunctions, conditionals, and biconditionals. But you know, officially there would be parentheses around the entire sentence if it's one of those types, and you can drop those outermost parentheses. And you should, because again, it's the same reason, right? If you've got a complicated sentence, you're going to have a hard enough time keeping track of which parentheses go with which. If you have an extra set around the entire sentence, you're just making life harder for yourself, and there's just no reason to do that. We also adopt the convention. I mean, it's the same convention as in algebra that you can replace pairs of parentheses with square brackets. So you can do all of these instead of having parentheses there. Um, and this is really valuable because it makes complex sentences much easier to understand, right? This really helps you keep track of which ones go with which. Okay, so that is how parentheses. And the really important thing is you don't need to put them around the entire sentence. Don't put them around sentence letters. Don't put them around negations. Other than that, they work very much the same way as they do in algebra. So it's fairly intuitive. Um, okay, having gotten through that, what we'll look at now is the formal recursive definition of a sentence of SL. So remember, this was a few videos back, right? How recursive definitions work. So we're defining a sentence of SL by giving a procedure that you could go through to construct all of the sentences of SL. And the procedure will have three parts. We have a base step where you stipulate a bunch of things that will fit the definition. So we're going to stipulate a bunch of things that are sentences of SL. Then we will have an inductive step, which gives a procedure that where you can take things that fit the definition and then make more things that fit the definition out of them. So the inductive step here will take things that are sentences of SL and make more sentences of SL out of them. And then we'll have a proviso at the end that says that nothing else besides the things that you can construct through this procedure fits the definition. So nothing else is a sentence of SL. So here's how it looks. One, this is our base step. Any sentence letter is a sentence of SL. Then we get into the inductive step, which here has 5 parts. So if P is a sentence of SL, then so is not P, right? Or, more precisely, the result of putting a tilde in front of P. If P and Q are sentences of SL, then so is the sentence that results by putting an ampersand in between them and parentheses around. If they're sentences of SL, then so is the result of putting a wedge between them and parentheses around, and then same for the horseshoe, same for the triple bar. And last, we have the proviso. Nothing is a sentence of SL unless it can be formed by finitely many applications of 1 to 6. Note the finitely many applications here. That actually does 2 things. One, it specifies that this definition is complete because all the sentences of SL are going to be produced by this definition. The other thing that it does, though, is it specifies sentences of SL must be finitely long. You can't have an infinitely long sentence of SL because it must be something that you can produce by this procedure through finitely many applications, and that's something that you can, that's only going to yield a finitely long sentence. So there's our formal definition. Then we adopt 2 informal conventions. First one is that you can drop that outermost set of parentheses. So if you have this sentence, for example, you can just reduce it to this one. Second informal convention is that pairs of parentheses may be replaced with pairs of square brackets. So instead of this sentence, you could replace it with this one. That then covers our definition of sentences of SL and the informal conventions that we're using in this course.